Here we go. Here we go. I think I figured it out. Oh my goodness. Welcome everybody. It is Greggy P of the Greggy P podcast, and you know what? Greggy really be trying today. Anyway, no, it's kind of crazy how you can try to figure everything out one day, and then you think you got it all set up, and then the next day you just literally have no idea what you're doing and have to start over. It's great. Um, But you know what? You just can't give up. You just gotta figure it out. You just gotta go with the flow. You know, can't can't give up. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. So here I am trying to podcast. Anyway, yeah, changing the setup a little bit, just so that it sounds better. Maybe looks a little bit better. Probably not. Probably looks the same. But you know what? It was a whole lot of work on my end. So hope it's working. Hope it's doing its thing. Anyway, so today I just wanted to, just record because you know what? It's about consistency, like I said. Hope you all are being consistent in your goals. Um, okay, yeah, kind of getting into that. Recently I've been kind of in a rut as far as coming up with new ideas, new things to talk about. Kind of getting back into AI. AI is always in the news, always generating headlines, so got some stuff about that. But the first thing I wanted to talk about, just because it's really exciting to me, is just actually getting into a new book. The new book that I'm currently reading is, and when I say reading, I mean listening to on Audible, is How to Become Supernatural. And I know from the title that, it sounds like something that isn't really real, something that you would probably, if you're a very logical person like I like to think I am, you'd probably read the title How to Become Supernatural and think it's gimmicky, a whole lot of hoopla, and you know what, you might be right. But here I am going to talk about the book. So I just started the first few chapters, and the author is a doctor as far as I can tell. He's got the credentials. A lot of what he talks about is just meditation, a lot of thinking, a lot of how to overcome how the brain, deals with the chemistry that affects our day-to-day lives, and how to really just rewire your brain and body to create the future that you're hoping for, or that you would enjoy. And a lot of that has to do with um, honestly, one of the big things that's just kind of like I would have thought was like hoopla or just like mumbo jumbo a few years ago was like vibrational energy and just light energy that humans can like create or carry around with them. Because if I was to, you could kind of take like the expression that the vibes are off. Like, I don't like somebody's vibes, and you could kind of say like that's just whatever. It's not really a thing. No one really has like a vibration. You could say like that's just their attitude. But realistically, humans and beings in general do carry energy throughout their body, and there's such a thing as electromagnetic fields, and it's not something that humans are able to percept with like our normal senses, our five senses. Is probably there is like more senses than we have than the five major senses. It's just that it's hard to define them and categorize them and explain them necessarily. So one of the extra senses that we have is just this vibrational um, feeling, and we all emit different vibrations. Like I said, there's the expression, "Oh, the vibes were off," or the expression like you could cut the tension with a knife. You walk into the room and the tension is in the air. People where they walk into the room and everyone immediately kind of like lightens up, or you kind of have this one person at work where you kind of dread working with them because, they don't even have to say or do anything, but the moment they walk into the room, that their energy really just brings everybody down. And, these energies that everybody creates, it's one of the last parts that I was listening to was talking about how the chemistry of your body, or, well, no, is more of, he was talking about how possessions start to own you versus you own your possessions. And in that sense, when you start to stress about what, like, really resonated with me is if you, like, start to stress about your bills, you start to stress about work, you start to worry about your car payment, your mortgage payment, your electric bill, phone bill, you worry about, the health of your cats. You start to worry about how much repairs that your house is going to need. And just the worrying of all these things starts to really overtake the doing or the enjoyment of those things. So instead of you being able to be in a space that you enjoy and can really appreciate these things and use them to your advantage, you're spending a cyclical amount of time just kind of worrying about these things, and they end up controlling you. And when you live in a state of constant worry and anxiety, you really don't create. There's like two states of being basically. There's the constant, like, there's the primal, where you are constantly on lookout, on standing on edge, looking over your shoulder, worried about the next thing or the other. And then there's the prosperity kind of mentality. The way what really stuck out to me is, going through life kind of going, oh, what's going to happen next? What else can go wrong? What's the next thing that's going to ruin my day or be added to the list of little projects or things that I have to fix? And, this is something that I don't do, and I'm really going to try and, like, work on it, is, like, instead of worrying what's going to go wrong, is what could go right. The big thing he talks about is going into the unknown and not really living in a sense of all the current and past problems of your life dictate your current status and where you're going, but you live in a state of future prosperity and the world of the unknown, where what could go right? What could happen to me that, is additional or beneficial, and what else could be great for me? And that's what this podcast is kind of like, I was hoping for. Like, I really don't know what it's like to have people that are going to comment on my video, or, subscribers, or people that react to it possibly. And, I always was coming from, a mentality of, oh, I don't want the criticism. I don't want people pointing out my flaws. I don't want people kind of throwing in my face, my whole life I have been like a mumbler. Like, when I was very young, my sister would say, like, quit mumbling. And mumbling does come from a place of not wanting to be judged. You don't really want to speak up, because then it kind of puts you out on a pedestal for the ability to someone to criticize whatever you say. So you kind of mumble, you kind of just say, well, I just kind of think this is just not important. It's just, you have to say something, so you say something, and, then it's cyclical. Like, you're getting criticized because you're not saying something that's actually audible. You're just not speaking up, so you're getting criticized for that. So it's a self-repeating cycle. And, I still have, like, some speaking issues. I know that a lot of people in our generation use the word like 5 times in a sentence. I feel like I would like this. He was, so, like, that's a major issue. I've had just now, using again using or as like a space filler. Just use both because it is so hard to not have silence. I think in trying not to use I become a lot more intentional with my wording. I don't try to fill space. I think about what I'm about to say a little bit more, and it does feel awkward to just have um no I should say. It does feel like I'm not stuttering or I'm slow or anything. It just does fill a void, and it does give a chance for me to think when I do throw those in, and it's not intentional. Using those words is very second nature now. It's obviously not part of the vocabulary. It doesn't add anything. When you say it's like this, it's like obviously it's like that. You could just say it is that, you know. And I use because you know. Anyway, what was I talking about? Working on that. So I'm working on that, trying to move to a mentality of prosperity, abundance, and creation. Another thing that he mentioned in his book, when you do live in that primal state where you're constantly thinking about your stressors and your worries, is that it really limits your brain is very limited in its ability to move to a creative state, so that you do have a lot less ability to create, which is this is it. This is me trying to think on my feet for the most part. A lot of what I've been saying has not been something I've written down yet. I'm just regurgitating a lot of information very fast in a hopefully a way that is understandable. And you know what? He was also talking about how repetition is the way we create habits, especially for like thought habits. And I'm really trying to make this a habit. I know I could have written more. I had a lot going on this week as far as like just seeing friends and work and cleaning around the house and stuff like that. So making time for this was just such a priority for me. It was just knocking on my head all the last few days like, hey, it's almost the end of the week. You got to get it done. You got to get that done. And it's seems silly because it's not something that really brings me a whole lot of benefit at this point. It is a creative outlet, but it is one. I feel like this channel is one of those things I'm building brick by brick. So I know it's not like a super interesting channel. I know it's not a very niche thing where somebody that tunes in knows exactly what they're going to get. So it's something that people are really going to have to like stumble upon and then listen and then actually enjoy what I have to say and then kind of want more. So I have to put a lot out there and, just refine my speaking and my wording and my writing so that it becomes something that's very packageable, very, well produced so that it's easier to digest. And I'm working on that. But first things first is I have to create a video. I have to like have something to build upon and just ideas that I can reference later and really work on making a video and talking. And you know what? That's kind of what's going on here. So I'm doing it. I'm working on the piano too. Sorry, that was bad. Anyway, that's that. I kind of want to talk about AI, like I said, as I check my phone, and it's not good for content to check my phone. But so AI content. I know this is making the rounds, but there is if you have a Roku TV or know what Roku is, basically it's just smart smart TV that has its own set of stations. And one of the stations that it has is now currently just AI content. Um, I heard about this in the news and I decided to watch it. The show that was on the AI channel, I think it's uh, Flip. I can't remember the name of the channel, but it was like Fairground. I don't know. Anyway, so the show was called Unknown Planet, and it was really weird because it felt a lot like this podcast where it is a podcast that just talks, or is a show that just talks, that knows it's a show, but they also have like a plot. So basically, in the show, they traveled to a planet, but they also talked about how in the last episode, because they knew they were episodes, they knew that they were in a TV show with actors that were, and it was up for an award in the second episode. And it was just so weird how all the people had they were all very attractive off the bat. Every single person in the show, whether they were human or android or whatnot, they were all super attractive. They all had zero emotion. As far as like a show shooting, like just like how a show plays out. Like normally people will move from like one point to the other, and there's like continuity and like where someone is and how they get to another place. People just like they're here one moment, and then in the next scene they're like standing here, and there's like no relativity to where they are unless they're right next to each other. Like someone will just be standing way off in the like front, and then one person way off in the back, and it was just very odd. It was just a very odd show, and there was also stuff that would probably not be able to be played on normal TV if it was made by regular people, and by that I mean nipples. But you know, gotta get people to watch somehow. So yeah, don't watch AI content unless you're really curious at how good it is. But to be honest, at the rate AI is getting better throughout time, like it used to be like choppy, not make sense, like visually, like very like few years ago, like it was like there's a test called the Will Smith eating spaghetti. You could look this up, where basically the challenge is how realistic can they make a scene of Will Smith eating spaghetti. And when I first saw it, it was just like he was barely getting it in his mouth. He wasn't eating normally. His face was all glitched out. And then a few years later, it actually looks like Will Smith eating spaghetti. And at the rate that AI is just getting better and better, it's not hard to imagine that it will generally look like a show that has like continuity and like actual like believable, like, oh, this is real people, like it will look real. But I feel like without human intervention, like just like people speaking normally, people interacting normally, the story making sense, I don't feel like that's going to happen. So I feel like AI is just always going to be a tool used by people. I don't feel like it's going to be able to replace like actual content unless people really do become just brain dead and don't care about stories making sense. So pray for future generations that actually care about quality content, just like this quality content podcast. Anyway, so that's all I have to say about that. So another type of show that I actually enjoy watching is a popular financial podcast, and kind of what my major gripe with all media is that a lot of media, especially I saw a major story making the rounds on Facebook having to do with Minnesota. I don't really want to get into it because I haven't researched it too much, but a lot of content is just outrage content, or content that's made because it makes people upset, and they're already upset about that kind of stuff, and then people make more stuff saying, hey, you remember that stuff you're upset about? Well, here's more stuff to be upset about. And they go, I'm so upset. So outrage content, and you know, kind of going back to like my book about you know trying to go from a place of like stressors to a place of love, I guess I would say. Like the opposite of hate is love. So a place going from a place of anger to a place of like happiness and like feeling good. And cuz I was thinking about it, and like hate can be a very powerful motivator. Like haters are my motivator. That's kind of like also coming from a place of hate, where you use somebody else's kind of like distrust of you or someone else's disbelief in you to try and prove them wrong. Like that's your motivation, is like to prove somebody wrong. Like that can be a very powerful. I've used hate as a motivator before, like just anger against somebody or something, and or some idea, to like be the reason why I do something. And yes, it was effective, but like the thing is, you only have one goal. And like, let's say like my motivation for losing weight was because I was tired of people or one person calling me overweight, or I wanted to show one person wrong. Well, what if it happens when I lose that weight? And or I lose that weight, and then that person is like, hey, wow, so proud of you, I knew you could do it. And you go, oh wow, they were actually nice to me this whole time, like I was the one that was down on myself. And like you just kind of have a whole dismal like feeling after that. And if you go to a point where you use like a positive emotion such as like joy or love, like let's say I'm like using this podcast, like I'm using the belief, the support of my girlfriend into being able to do what I want. Or she's like says, oh, I'm so amazing. And it's like kind of a lot sometimes, but you know what, it's just, if I use the support and the love of like my friends and my family to like believe in myself to do something, it's not limiting. I'm not using this hate of proving somebody wrong to accomplish one thing. I can use the support and love to go to a place of purposefulness and creation, and have many outlets. And like instead of just one major goal, I have this sense of creativity and abundance, and there's just more possibilities when you use that kind of mindset versus using hate. So getting back to like outrage content, you're kind of watching because you want to see this reaffirming belief that something is wrong, or that something is against your liking. And instead of like trying to find more good, you're focused on one bad. And going back to this like financial guy, like I started watching because he was like, oh well, here's like tips for like how to like budget more, or like how to save money on this, and like what kind of choices you should be making in your everyday life to like have better financial autonomy and whatnot. But now the most content that he's putting out is just like, these people are bad. Look how these people are wasting tax money. Look how these people are, wasting their own money. Look at these, bad people. You should be mad at these people, kind of thing. And it's just kind of sad to see. I mean, it's been obvious in like a lot of major news channels too. Like, just like these people are the reason everything's bad. Like, and like that's the major story. And it's just kind of like, someone else was I was listening to a Tony Robbins podcast, and he was talking about the same thing, and basically like how in the news, if it there's the expression, if it bleeds it leads, and people are going to be more prone to watch violence or sensational news rather than search out feel good stories or things that are beneficial for society, and that's just human nature. And you know, basically trying not to do that. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Trying to create more positive, trying to up my vibration, not trying to focus on things that make me upset, rather focus on what could go right. So that's probably what I should have named this episode, is what could go right. What did I name it? I don't even remember. But yeah, I kind of rambled. It's only been 25 minutes, but sometimes big things come in small packages. Local news. Went for a run today. I've been lifting a lot, and I started running. I'm trying to get back into running. I've been a lifter for like almost half my life at this point, and I've been a runner for off and on. And I gotta say, lifting is overrated. I just remember there was a big culture of just trying to be big, trying to be strong. And when I was in college, I really don't subscribe to that whole alpha male kind of concept. I feel like you should take care of your family, you should take care of yourself, and you should give back to your community. I feel like that's what makes a real man. It's not about how much meat you eat, how much you can lift, what kind of truck you drive. I think all that is overrated. I think the worst thing you can actually do is let anyone else be able to define manlyhood. I feel like I said, taking care of your community, your home, is the important thing. So I'm running because you know what, everyone can do that. Not really. Sorry to disabled people and people with physical limitations. I didn't mean it, but it's one of those things that if you don't use it, you lose it. I remember I was like lifting, and there's lifting with intent, and then there's lifting without intent. So there's bodybuilding. I mean, when you think weightlifting, you definitely think of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and other bodybuilders. My favorite being Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, just to name a couple, I guess. I don't know why. But, the cut physique, the very big muscles, the glowing on stage with a bunch of lotion on you. I mean, that's one of the big things. I mean, you might think of like guys at Venice Beach or the local guys you see at your gym. But majority of weightlifters end up just being like middle-aged dudes that don't really care about their diet. They're very strong, but their health has gone to crap, even though they do lift a lot. But not to say that I see a lot of runners and I think, wow, their physique looks good. I think Jesus, like, are you okay? Because like you can just run all the time and then you just get super skinny and leathery skin from being outside all the time. And you know what? I'm just being a hater. So you know what? Do what makes you happy. Anyway, so what makes me happy? Being able to get on here and talk for a while. I gotta go finish cleaning because I have a friend staying over later today. Gotta go buy some snacks, and then I gotta get ready for work. So glad I got on the pod. Glad I got to ramble for about 30 minutes. Probably just another little building block on the journey of life. But you know what? Yeah. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you got some good stuff from here. Hope a little bit of food for thought. A little snack for your cerebellum. Yeah, I really need to make more time to write and make these better. Not to say this was bad. I'm just gonna say it wasn't as great as I would like it to be. But you know what? I did learn. I did have a hassle setting up this like equipment earlier, so that was kind of frustrating. But you know what? I got through it. Got to talk. got to hopefully make the audio a little bit better, because every podcast is just so quiet and there's buzzing in the background, and that's one of the things I really need to work on, is just quality over quantity. Maybe not. Maybe quantity might be what I need. Who knows? I'm going to try and make more videos, so I will see you next time. Have a good day. Bye. Goodbye. This is a Greggy P podcast.